Finance Minister Bill Mulroney is set to announce the new federal budget today. He will address some of the challenges Canadians are facing in trying to get a full-time job. Mulroney is making middle-class Canadians a priority, and he says the budget will focus on skills training, innovation, and promoting long-term growth. He's been reluctant to introduce major tax hikes. Joining me now to talk about how the budget will affect you is personal finance expert Alex Kenjeev. Thanks so much for being here, Alex.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay, so let's do a flyover of some of the big ticket items that could probably be in this budget. Housing, jobs, technology, and childcare. Okay. Let's start with housing.
Well, you know, housing is such a difficult issue. I don't envy the finance minister's job here because we've got this crazy overheated housing market. On the one hand, they don't want housing prices to keep going up. On the other hand, you know, young Canadians, people entering the housing market, they want to make it easier for them to get a house. So what do? They may start playing with the principal residence capital gain exemption. This is this idea that your main home, any gain you get, totally tax-free. Well, what that does is it drives prices up and up and up over time. People put more and more of their assets into their homes, so it overheats the market. On the other hand, any change to a rule like that, if it's too drastic, could cause things to come tumbling down. So I would keep a very close eye on housing policy.
All right, what about the jobs, on the jobs front?
The jobs front is interesting because, again, you have a challenge or a trade-off. The economy is actually moving closer towards what we think of as full employment, which is great. But then on the other hand, how we're getting there is more and more people are in this sort of long-term unemployed category. They've just given up on looking for a job. So I'd be really interested to see what the government comes forward with in terms of skills retraining, et cetera. There have been some rumors, nothing confirmed.
Technology?
The technology front is a big opportunity and a very controversial one as well. We've had in the past, each new era of government in Canada has tried something different to sort of stimulate the tech sector. And we've seen different iterations of this under Harper, going back all the way to Chrétien. A lot of those programs are now sunsetting. And so the question is the government going to inject more money into tech specifically? Yeah. Because tech is, of course, the darling of governments around the world.
Have those Harper policies, were they effective?
I would say on balance, no. Most of my friends in the tech sector, CEOs, et cetera, they feel that the government was too much trying to kind of pick winners, which is not something the government is good at. On the other hand, there were programs in immigration, things you wouldn't think of as a budget item, but they did end up helping tech, so there was a mixed bag. Those programs aren't being sunsetted, though, so we're okay there.
So this is the Liberal government is looking really to reboot this entire thing.
Reboot it, but in what form, right? Yeah. Is it going to be a direct subsidy? Is it going to be a research tax credit? Is it going to be matching money that every time an investor puts in money, the government matches it, which is something the Harper government played with? Many different options, and so it'll be interesting to see what they decide.
And finally, the fourth leg of this budget table, we can call it, seems to be childcare. We talk about this in every single election that I can remember. What are the Liberals going to do to sort of help out on the childcare front?
Childcare is an interesting one because, you think about economic growth, spending, spending money in a budget, you want to spend it on things that'll grow the economy. And so the argument is that with childcare, that's going to help more parents enter the workforce and stay in the workforce, ultimately repaying that investment. So the question is it going to be money that goes directly into the pockets of mothers and fathers, helping them to work, or is it going to be subsidies to existing childcare centers, or is it going to be some balance? So far, the Liberals have gone for the first rather than the latter, and it looks like that's going to be expanded.
We've heard talk that the Liberals have promised to eliminate a lot of the tax breaks that seem to benefit the wealthiest Canadians.
Right.
Can we expect to see a big change on that front?
That is the big question of today. I think people are going to be watching to see, are they going to change? The big one is the capital gain inclusion rate. It's a bit of a mouthful, but there's this idea that if you have an asset, say you buy a business and then you sell that business, this is something only the wealthiest people usually do. That increase, only half of that is taxed, which is incredible. It's been like that for more than a decade. A big change to that rule, would it make the system more fair? Probably, but it would also be really disruptive. Financial markets hate uncertainty and big change. And so my bet would be, if there's any change there, it would be very small and incremental.
It seems to me that what we're discussing here, there's a lot of nuance in this budget. There's a lot of balancing that needs to happen. It seems like this is a sort of a dovetail, trying to complete the opus that was the first budget, right? A lot of questions were left unanswered last year that seem they're going to have to answer here, but we don't know how they're going to do that just yet.
I think that's a very fair comment. They've done a lot to try and sort of grow the middle class as they campaigned on. They've already cut the middle class tax rate, so what else can you do? I mean, you've got these big budget deficits. There's this commitment to keep the debt to GDP ratio tight. So are you going to raise taxes to plug that hole, or are you going to wait it out and hope that all that infrastructure money and other investments pay off enough to grow the GDP so that you don't have to. And of course, we won't even know that for months.
Alex, thanks so much for coming in and bringing a lot of these issues into focus for us.
Thank you, Ben.
All right, for more information on how the budget could affect you, head over to our website at yourmorning.ca.